I've suffered from severe night terrors and sleep paralysis for most of my life. It started when I was little and has continued to happen almost constantly into adulthood. For those of you who don't know what sleep paralysis is or have never experienced it, consider yourselves very lucky. To summarize the experience, your mind is awake, but your body is still asleep. You wake up in the middle of the night, unable to move and unable to scream. As this is happening, you begin to hallucinate terrible things such as demons, witches, and whatever else your brain decides to torture you with. I've always had one recurring creature visit me during my sleep paralysis episodes. It appears in a slightly different form every time I see it, but it always has glowing yellow eyes that resemble those of a cat. Its body is contorted and broken, and it crawls around like a spider. It has the upper body of a human with long messy hair and large hands, but its legs are that of a goat. I always knew it was coming when I woke up, unable to move or speak, and heard the all too familiar sounds of its footsteps thumping around and its cracking bones. It contorted its body in all sorts of unnatural ways as it crawled up and down my walls and ceiling. Sometimes it would run up and down the hallway outside my room before crawling or sometimes running through my door. Every time I've seen it, it has climbed on top of me and attempted to suck the life out of me. It begins by strangling me until I can no longer breathe and whispers, "You will be mine." That horrible, evil, otherworldly voice has always been stuck in my head. I've always just called it Thing Entity because I had no other explanation as to what it was. One of my foster parents would even come into my room and begin beating me whenever I woke up screaming. I was constantly punished for my suffering. I would need to move into new foster homes quite frequently because of my nightly screaming. As you can probably tell, going through this on an almost nightly basis really started to mess with my mental and physical health. Even when I turned 18 and left the foster care system, things didn't get better. Sometimes I would go days without sleeping because I knew once I shut my eyes, I would be in for a night of absolute terror. My grades at school suffered, my relationships suffered, and I could never hold down a job. I tried almost everything to cure it: medications, meditation, therapy, and even hypnosis, but to no avail. Eventually, I got desperate and started looking into natural remedies. I knew a guy from high school named Oscar who sold marijuana and shrooms. I hit him up on Facebook and asked him if he was still selling. He said yes. I explained my situation to him and asked if he had anything that could help. He said he had the perfect product and gave me a time and a date to meet up. We met up at the local park at noon the next day. I saw him sitting on a bench. He saw me as well and waved me over. He changed quite a bit since high school. He was a lot skinnier than he used to be, with a large blonde beard and long hair that went down to his waist. When I approached him at the bench, I tried to shake his hand, but he got up and hugged me instead. It was a little weird because we never really hung out that much in high school. The most notable encounter we had was when I had to drive him home from prom after he got kicked out for being intoxicated. "Adrian, long time no see, brother. So happy you reached out," he said enthusiastically. "Happy to see you too, bro," I responded. "You got the special product." He nodded and we both sat on the bench. He reached into his backpack and took out some kind of tea bag. "What is this?" I asked. "I thought you were gonna give me shrooms or something to smoke." He went on to explain that the tea bag contained various mushrooms and herbs that would help me reach the upper plane. I asked him what the hell he was talking about. All I wanted was something to help me sleep peacefully. He began giggling like a schoolgirl. At this point, I was losing my patience, so I got up to leave, but Oscar stopped me and begged for me to hear him out. I sat back down reluctantly. He told me after he finished high school, he traveled around the country to find himself. During his trip, he met the leader of a mysterious religious group who taught him how to make the special tea bag he had in his possession. The ingredients in the tea bag allowed the user to transfer their consciousness into the upper plane. He went on to describe the upper plane as another dimension, only accessible by human consciousness. To transfer one's consciousness there, a person must completely detach themselves from this dimension with the help of years of meditation or the content in the tea bag. I was extremely confused and I began laughing at what he was telling me. I was always a very skeptical, science-based person, so all of this sounded like complete nonsense to me. "So how the hell is this gonna help with my problem?" I asked. He leaned in like he was about to tell me a secret, and his tone changed and got much more serious. He started whispering, "Once your consciousness is in the upper plane, you'll be able to remove any negativity weighing it down. Whatever you do there will have a direct impact on yourself here. Simply being there should do the trick, because it will allow your mind to be cleansed and healed. Once you arrive, all you gotta do is sit there and enjoy the vibes. Time in the upper plane works differently than it does in this dimension, so you won't be able to tell how long you're in there, but you'll most likely reconnect with your body in around 1 or 2 Earth hours. After that, your sleep paralysis should be cured for good." I was sitting there in disbelief and regret that I reached out to this wacko for help. But I was so desperate, I was willing to try anything. If modern medicine and therapy couldn't help me, then maybe this was the miracle I needed. "Okay," I said reluctantly, "I'll try it." Oscar smiled. He started handing over the tea bag but quickly pulled his hand back and got serious once again. "Adrian, the upper plane appears differently to everyone who enters it because our minds cannot fully comprehend its true form. There are a lot of things about it we don't understand. Whatever world you find yourself in, do not wander around. Stay in the place you arrive in the entire time." Do I make myself absolutely 100% clear? Yes for sure, I responded. "I want to hear you say it," he said. I exhaled in frustration. "Okay." I put my right hand over my heart and my left hand in the air in a joking manner. "I promise I won't wander around the Narnia fantasy world, or whatever it is." He grabbed my hand and put it back down. "Don't mess around with this. It's not a fantasy world, Adrian. Your actions in there have real consequences. Do you understand?" "Okay, sorry," I said. "I promise I won't wander." He nodded and started smiling again and handed me the tea bag. "Let it steep for 15 minutes. Don't add any sugar, milk, or honey, and stir it well after you remove the tea bag. Finish the whole thing, then lay down in a safe spot," he explained. I asked how much I owed him, but he told me helping out a friend was more than enough payment. That night, after I finished dinner, I started boiling the water for the special tea. Once it was boiled, I followed all of Oscar's instructions very carefully. I took the first sip, and it was absolutely revolting. I can only describe the taste as mud mixed with rotten eggs. It was too late to turn back at that point, so I plugged my nose during each sip and managed to gag the whole glass down in about 10 minutes. Once I finished, I went into my room, laid on my back, and tried to take some deep breaths. My cat came in and curled up beside me. I waited about 15 minutes and felt absolutely nothing. Oscar was full of crap, I whispered as I shook my head. I started getting up, but then the room began spinning violently. I immediately laid back down and prepared for the wild trip ahead. "Here we go," I said to myself. The world around me began to evaporate, almost like reality itself was breaking down. This continued until all I saw was pitch black. I began to feel myself fall, but I wasn't falling down. It felt like I was falling up. All kinds of colors and lights began to appear until a galaxy started to form around me. I was afraid but also in awe of what I was witnessing. It felt like I was staring into eternity. As I was falling, I saw a colorful planet appear in front of me. It got closer and closer until I realized I was hurtling right toward it. I closed my eyes and braced for impact as I approached the planet at exponential speed. Right before I was about to crash land, I slowed down and began floating slowly and safely toward the ground. I opened my eyes. What I saw and felt was absolutely indescribable from a human perspective, but I'll try my best. The landscape was unlike anything I had ever seen before, both in real life and fiction. There were all kinds of vegetation and animals. They resembled the plants and animals on Earth, but they were so much more beautiful and complex. For example, I saw creatures that looked like lions, but they were red and green, with the legs of large birds and tails like peacocks. I saw multiple strange creatures floating in the sky. They all looked like combinations of different animals on Earth. Some of them had multiple, human-looking eyes. They made loud but gorgeous singing noises that harmonized perfectly with each other. The sky above was a perfect view of the galaxy, with different planets, stars, and colorful clouds littering the sky. Think of the most perfect night sky view you have ever seen. Add the northern lights, then multiply that beauty by 1,000,000. I safely landed on the ground at the bottom of a massive waterfall that emptied into into a crystal clear lake filled with all kinds of unique and weird aquatic life. I felt absolute pure joy, like all my problems and negative feelings were left in the dark void I came through. This world didn't feel like a dream, it felt so real, more real than my life back on Earth. I felt more aware, I could smell better, see better, hear better, and think clearer. It was total heavenly bliss. I could not believe what I was experiencing. I took a few minutes, or hours, to take in my surroundings. Oscar was right. Time worked differently in there. I had no perception of it. I spent an unknown amount of time sitting on a rock beside the waterfall, crying tears of joy. It was the first time I had felt happiness and peace in a very long time. I continued to look around the amazing world. I wanted to explore every corner of it, but then I remembered the stern warning Oscar gave me, absolutely no wandering. I shook off the feeling of curiosity, but then it came back. I just had to explore. What does Oscar know? I asked myself. This is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. If I don't explore, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I began walking down the shore of the lake. I heard a loud and majestic roar above me. I looked up and saw a group of whale-like creatures with wings, flying gracefully through the colorful sky. Eventually, I got to the entrance of a thick forest. I saw an adorable little woodland creature. It looked like some kind of squirrel mixed with a guinea pig, but it had blue fur and a pink tail. I tried to call it toward me, but it ran into the woods. A childlike instinct took over, and I started laughing and chased after it. My movements in this world felt so fluid. I was running, but it felt like I was floating. I was deep in the woods, still hot on the creature's tail, when I saw a pure blue light coming from a cave in the distance. This immediately caught my attention, and I stopped my pursuit. For some reason, I was drawn to it, almost hypnotically. I approached the cave and stopped at the entrance. It's been a long time since I've had a visitor, I heard from deep in the cave. I was shocked. I wasn't expecting anyone else to be there. "Hello," I shouted in response. "Who's there?" My voice echoed through the cave. There was no answer. Then I began to hear footsteps coming from the cave. They got closer and closer, and the light got brighter and brighter. Eventually, a tall, bald, glowing man dressed in blue and yellow robes emerged from the cave. His eyes were strange. They didn't have any corneas or pupils. They looked like galaxies, pitch black and dotted with bright stars. "Hello, Adrian," he said. His voice was otherworldly. It echoed and slightly shook my chest and the ground around us as he spoke. "How do you know my name?" I responded. "I have known you your entire life. We're closer than you think." Are you God or something?" I asked. He smiled and said, "It depends on your definition of God. What you see around you is my home. I have been trapped here since the beginning of creation. Outsiders don't usually wander when they visit, so I have not met anyone else in a long time. Trapped? I would love to be trapped in a place like this. I was told not to wander before I got here, but I don't know why. This place is wonderful." The man sat down on a rock beside the cave and smiled. "Outsiders are very closed-minded," he said. "They are afraid of what they will find here because they fear what they do not understand. But you are lucky you found me. I am the master of this realm. I can teach you all its secrets, and you will be more knowledgeable and wise than anyone on Earth. How does that sound, Adrian?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a glowing yellow orb. "Here is your reward for finding me. I hold in my hand the secrets of existence. All you need to do is reach out and take it, and all the knowledge shall be yours." I entered a trance, my eyes fixated on the glowing orb he was holding in front of me. I began to reach for it. "That's right," he said, almost menacingly. "The knowledge of the cosmos shall soon be at your fingertips. You will be like a god to those on Earth." I was almost touching the orb, but then I got an overwhelming sense that something was wrong. That was the first feeling of negativity I felt in that place. I quickly pulled my hand back. "I'm sorry, I can't." The man's face quickly turned from friendly and benevolent to sinister. He stood up and put the orb away. So close-minded, he snarled as his voice got deeper and more sinister. "No problem. I've always said you will be mine, one way or another. And now you are here, my boy, in my dwelling place." His eyes morphed into those all too familiar, yellow cat-like eyes. At that moment, I finally knew what this thing was. It wasn't God or a friendly, benevolent spirit. It was the same thing that had been tormenting me almost every night since I was a child. And now I had walked right into its home, into its trap, It began morphing right in front of my eyes, its body contorting, cracking, and bending in all kinds of unnatural ways. It let out a horrible, blood-curdling scream that shook me to my core. An overwhelming sense of fear and panic overtook me. I turned around and began running back in the direction I came from. I could still hear the entity behind me, its hooves stomping the ground beneath it as it ran after me on all fours. The wonderful world I thought I was in began to change. The color began disappearing, the beautiful creatures began hissing at me, and the sky above turned blood red. I began hearing screams of suffering coming from deep in the woods. Some of the voices were telling me to run, while others were demanding I join them. I looked behind me as I was running for my life, and saw the entity quickly gaining on me. I had no idea what to do or how to get out of there, so I started screaming for help. I don't know who I was expecting to reach, but I had no other option. As I was running and screaming, I noticed a door in the distance. I began running toward it, hoping it would lead me somewhere else. As I reached the door, the entity grabbed me, sinking its claws into my leg with 5 of its fingers. "You cannot escape me. I am already with you. We are one." It yelled and laughed maniacally. In a last-ditch attempt to release myself from its grip, I began kicking it in the face over and over, releasing all the anger from the pain and suffering this thing had caused me my entire life. Finally, I kicked it hard enough that it released me. As soon as I was free, I opened the door, ran inside, and slammed it shut. Once I shut the door, I was back in the void. I felt myself falling down this time, until another universe formed around me. I saw another planet and recognized it right away. It was Earth. I began plummeting down toward Earth. Eventually, I found myself above my city, then my neighborhood, then my house, and then I was hovering over my own body, still unconscious in my bed. I hovered above my body for a while until I slammed back into it. It felt like I hit concrete. I woke up gasping for air. I leaned over my bed toward my trash can and started throwing up. I noticed my cat walking into my room. I began calling her over, but as soon as she saw me, she began hissing and ran away. Once I composed myself, I grabbed my phone and checked the time. It was now 1 a.m. I had been out for 7 hours. I wondered why I was out for that long. Oscar said it would only last for 1 to 2 hours. I went to the bathroom and began splashing cold water on my face. I looked into the mirror and saw my eyes were bloodshot red, with deep bags underneath them. It was just a dream. It was just a dream, I kept whispering to myself over and over. I splashed more water on my face, but when I looked back up at the mirror, I saw something horrible. The entity was standing right behind me, with its dirty claws on my shoulders. I turned around, but there was nothing there. I thought I was still high from the tea. I walked out of the bathroom back toward my bed, but then I began to feel a stinging pain on my leg. I stopped walking and rolled my pant leg up. I saw 5 large, bloody claw marks. As I was looking at my leg in disbelief, I thought about Oscar's warning, "Your actions and there have real consequences." I began to realize the gravity of the situation. That place I was in wasn't just in my head, it was real. That entity I had been seeing my entire life was real too, and I had just released it from whatever had been holding it back. "It's real, it's real, it's real," I kept repeating to myself. I didn't know what else to do, so I curled up into a ball and began to cry. As I laid on the floor sobbing, I heard my cat scream, followed by a sharp crunching sound. I got up quickly. "Layla," I shouted, but she didn't come. I walked around my apartment trying to find her. I started getting a feeling that something terrible had happened. When I got to the living room, my heart dropped. Layla was on the couch, decapitated. Her blood was everywhere. On the wall beside the couch, written in her blood were the words, "We are one." In the mirror above my couch, I saw it. It was where my reflection should have been. I walked closer to the mirror and it followed. "What do you want?" I screamed. "What the hell do you want?" The entity began smiling at me, showing its sharp, dirty fangs. Those yellow eyes that had haunted me for all those years were staring right back at me. "You have already given me what I wanted, Adrian. Thank you for freeing me," it said. "I was waiting so long for you to come get me. I was so lonely in there. Now you and I can finally be one." It began laughing. I started punching the mirror. Blood began pouring down my arms as shards of glass dug deep into my knuckles. "Leave me alone. Leave me alone," I screamed. I began to feel my feet lift off the ground. I flew into the wall violently. As I was laying on the floor, the entity emerged from the shattered mirror, its body contorting as it got closer to me. As it stood above me, I blacked out. I woke up in an alleyway the next morning. I pulled out my phone and called Oscar. Adrian, what's up, brother? How was your journey? I stayed silent, breathing heavily and not knowing what to say. Adrian, his tone became serious. You didn't wander, did you? I began sobbing. I fucked up, man. I'm so sorry. Something followed me out of there. Something that has been tormenting me since I was a child. It's real, it's after me. I need your help, please. Oscar was silent and didn't say a word. I could hear him breathing heavily. His breath was trembling like he was panicking. Oscar, please help me. Please tell me what to do. I yelled in complete desperation. That thing you released is more dangerous than you could possibly imagine. That is why I told you not to wander. When you disobeyed my warning, you gave this thing a route into our world. When you returned, it hitched a ride on you. It used to be trapped in there, and it could only astral project itself into your night terrors. But now, it's here, and there is no limit to the harm it can cause you and others. I began panicking. Please tell me how to get rid of it. I'm begging you. I've heard stories about those who have wandered in the upper plane. Once they return, they begin to lose their minds, until they lose themselves and something completely different takes over. There is no way to get rid of it, Adrian. It's already here in our world. You are its vessel into this world, and as long as you're here, it will stay. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have given you the tea. I just wanted to help you, but you didn't listen to my warnings. You were never ready. I became furious. I started punching the garbage bin in the alley. No, you fix this shit right now. I'm not gonna let this thing take me. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. Goodbye, Adrian. Then he hung up. After he hung up, I heard the entity on the phone laughing maniacally. I smashed my phone on the ground and ran away. I am losing my sanity. Every day, the entity grows stronger and stronger, and I lose more and more control of myself. I don't know how long I have left, but I'll continue fighting this thing as long as I can. If I lose the battle, this post will stand as a testament to the fact that I fought like hell to overcome this thing. Throughout my entire life, the only person I could ever rely on was myself, and I will continue to fight for myself. Thank you to my superfans, Sweet Black Swan, Tacey, and Brooklyn. I really appreciate you guys supporting my channel, and I look forward to making more content for everyone.